This is every simple hack you need for Minecraft 1.21. And hey, the YouTube analytics gods bet me that you can't subscribe to the channel before I dig down to Bedrock. So to prove them wrong, insta-mine that sub button down below. It's free and it helps out a ton. The new copper grate block offers up some great build hack potential, and we've even shown that off in the past for our autumn leaves. But what we neglected there was showing off the exposed copper grate. I mean, let's be honest, the combination between orange and green isn't always the prettiest. Though when you tuck it inside of a brick floor like this, as user inexister shows off here, it works particularly well. And now we've got drainage in your floor. And I think brick floors already go underutilized in Minecraft, so if this gives an excuse to make one, I think it's well worth it. It looks great. Ah? With the new update, we've now got new potion effects as well. And unfortunately for the game's balancing, but fortunate for our Fortune 3, this update seems to have completely ruined how we're able to get experience. Since with the splash potion of infestation, that'll make it so that any mob that gets infested will give off silverfish. Sounds like a bad time, right? But by using these infestation potions on allays that are constantly taking damage, that'll allow us to generate an absurd amount of silverfish. And because allays are a mob that are defined by their uniquely fast regen rate, they'll never die from that damage source. Meaning that as long as they're infested, they're giving off an absolute mountain of silverfish. And as you can quickly see from Simply Sark's example, the experience you can get from this is quickly out of hand. And while it might be something that gets patched later on, I'd say that's all the more reason to get your enchants fast. And the infestation potions weren't just the only new ones that we got, since now we're also able to use oozing potions, which throw that on your mob farm, and now a mob farm of any type will become a slime farm as well, since as they die, they're gonna give off slime to give us slime balls. It's basically like giving your farm an add-on, and since we were already killing the things anyway, I'd much rather do this than have to dig out a whole chunk. Just seems so much easier to brew. With the new wind charges that we get from the trial chambers below, they're not just good for flipping open the trapdoors that we see down there, because it only takes one look at all the tweets made about this update to see how we're also able to use these for a boost jump if we want to. And now it starts to feel like rocket jumping in something like TF2. And while I love this update, it does have a little twinge of the fact that I'm gonna get annoyed seeing how many different TikTok parkour videos start using this. But hey, you need something to watch while an AI reads out a Reddit article, so I guess this is something. Now obviously the crafter block is useful for, well, crafting, but it also has some great applications if you were to put this into your builds. And particularly what this user did inside of their kitchen is something that I love. Since if you look at the side of the texture for the crafter, you see that we can use the directionality of the block and make this handle look a lot more like the handle of a cabinet. And not only does that look great on your walls, but you can also place a 2x2 of these on your floor, add a carpet over top, and now you've got something of a kitchen island inside of your kitchen too. Which is good that these are easy to build with, because figuring out how to use them naturally is a little tough. As you'll see, we don't just have to use the wind charges for jumping, but also while we're flying. And so if you start flying close to the ground with your elytra, look straight down, right click, and then if you look back up in one quick motion, all of that wind charge will turn into a hefty boost off the ground. Just make sure your sensitivity is good enough for able to look up as quick as you're looking down. Since while it is true that the closer to the ground that you get, the better the effect is gonna be, it's also true that if you get too close to the ground, it's not gonna do you anything. You're just gonna be a pile of items and a waste of a wind charge. In fact, the safest way to use a wind charge is to use it in place of where we would use a water bucket. Since now, instead of a water bucket MLG, if we use that same timing with the wind charge, then as soon as we get to the ground, we right click, and that puff of air removes all fall damage that we would have taken, which I particularly love because we're able to use these wind charges in the nether. And considering the alternative in the nether for something like this would be a powdered snow bucket or a hay bale, I gotta say I like the wind charge a lot better. Maybe not as reusable, but it's a whole lot more usable. And in that case, I'm fine with it. If you've ever decided to build a copper roof for your build, then you know just how hard it can be to get that much of the stuff. And the fact that we now have so many more copper blocks to choose from in this update, that problem isn't getting any easier anytime soon. Or it wouldn't if you were still using drowns to farm for your copper. Since if you're lucky enough to find a trial chamber down in the mine, then forget about copper ore, we can just mine out all this build for our copper needs. It's actually kind of surprising how much Mojang gives us of this stuff anyways. I mean, the fact that we're even able to break blocks in the trial chamber seems weird, but to put this many expensive blocks here too, you'd be silly not to clear one of these out after you get rid of all the mobs. While figuring out how to get certain recipes into the crafter is a bit tough, considering you have to put them all in the right order, it's using one of these for storage blocks that it gets a lot easier. For one, things like turning iron ingots into an iron block doesn't have an order. All you need to know is just just that 9 ingots go into 1 block. And so by adding one of these to your farm, you can quickly store all of your output so much easier. And now your iron farm storage looks like this instead of this. And particularly for gold farms, this is great. We can turn our nuggets into ingots and then our ingots into blocks. Or even have your skeleton farms output their bones into bone meal and then bone meal into bone blocks. Really, there's so many different uses for this that it's going to become a staple in every farm design that you see from here on out. Why wouldn't you just craft this instead of having to have 9 times the storage? It just makes so much sense. Copper grates aren't just useful for our floors, but they also can be used in our walls for windows. Since with a couple of these, we can lay it out as so and have a great window grill for us to see. And particularly where I find this useful is if you were trying to build something like a castle or a church. Now you don't have to use iron bars and make it look like a prison. You could just use this and get an even better effect. Copper looks a lot better next to the warm tones of the wood types than metal bars. I think it's safe to say we're trading up here. In the past, we used to use TNT for our player cannons, but ever since 1.21, we're now able to follow after Michael 23B's design and make one of the easiest player cannons using wind charges. As we can see in this example, in almost no time, they travel nearly 60 blocks just to land perfectly at the top and take no fall damage from it. I mean, with TNT player cannons, sure, you can reduce the amount of damage that you take with things like blast protection, but even then, there's some damage sustained. But because of the way that wind charges work, there's absolutely none sustained here. And with redstone that's so simple you could learn how to do it from just a screenshot, there's no reason not to build this in your next base. If you've ever taken the time to learn redstone, you've probably heard the phrase T flip-flop come up. And really, the concept is as simple as if we get a redstone signal, it's going to turn on, and it'll stay on until it receives another redstone signal to turn it off. And while in the past we used to have to build this all out, with the new copper bulb item, it's literally just as simple as having a copper bulb with a comparator out the back. There you go, there's your T flip-flop. And I think for teaching new players how to do redstone, this is an insanely useful feature. Anything that helps to make designs more compact is something I like. Especially when spawn chunks got smaller in this update. Our farms need to get a lot smaller to fit. I think this is nice. Now, one of the things you use to make the mace is the heavy core, which is a unique crafting item because we're able to place it down like a player head in our world. But the breeze rod, not as much. Or at least it wouldn't be unless we did something like this. Since by having a light blue stained glass right underneath our heavy core, it just looks like we placed our mace right down in the world. A simple build hack, but one that fits really well for the new update. With the ways that the crafter block lights up when you power it, we're able to incorporate it into our walls and floors and take after this user's example to have a chasing light effect that goes through your industrial builds. And now this is starting to look like something that you'd get in a mod pack, let alone in vanilla Minecraft. And while that might turn away certain players, I think it looks pretty nice here. And for showing players where to go inside of your map, this is a really cool way to do it. If not gonna take a little bit of redstone and upfront cost to craft all these. While rating the new trial chambers that we're finding in this update, how do you tell which mobs are gonna spawn from a different trial spawner? Well, I guess the easy answer would be wait until they start spawning, but you can actually go against that. Since by looking at the floor design, you can see in this helpful graphic from Reddit, each one of these spawners has a different 4 blocks that are put into the base. So mossy cobblestone for the zombie, but then a mix of mossy cobblestone and cobblestone for a baby zombie. Ice for the stray, podzol and bone blocks for the bogged, and of course the new chiseled tough blocks for the new breeze mob. And once you know how to look out for these, and particularly look out for the ones that are going to be in trouble, it can really help you out in a pinch. Especially when you're going for the revaulting advancement and you're going back through again. Then it would definitely help to know which ones are which when you're going in. And while you're down in those trial chambers, you should remember to bring yourself an axe. And not just for fighting mobs, because actually a sword would be better for the PvE with the sweeping edge. And the reason is that if you bring down an axe, you're able to use that to strip off the oxidation off of the copper bulbs down there and get extra light inside of the trial chambers, which can really help you out a lot when it's already hard enough to see down there. And hey, it could also get you to that new advancement of stripping off all the copper. Then it's really a no-brainer. Even if it's a cheap axe, it's gonna do the job in both cases. With the new armadillos that spawn from the Armored Paws update, we've now got a new terror for our spiders. And as many technical Minecraft players have been quick to point out, as long as we make sure that the armadillos aren't getting rolled up, then they'll be able to scare the spiders off the walls of your mob farm, which, as anyone who's ever had to build one of these mob farms know, is a real jamming point. And so while it might be hard to get an armadillo over there in the first place, it turns out that having a few of these will just make it a lot easier for your farm's returns. With all the new advancements that we got in 1.21, one of the hardest ones to get is the blowback advancement, but there is an equally easy solution that you can do inside of the game, since by simply trapping the breeze inside of a boat, then you're able to deflect their shots back at them at a much higher success rate. Now, even if this is true that you're going to be able to hit these back simpler, I will still recommend softening up the breeze with a couple of different weapons at first. I mean, these wind charges do not do a lot of damage to them, so get it down to about 1 hit and then finish off the job that way. Launching yourself up high with a wind charge seems like it would take a bit of precision, but really the simplest way to launch yourself up higher with a wind charge is just by crouching before you jump. And looking at this example that we got here from user Lime Lemon, we see that by crouching first, we're able to launch ourselves up 11 blocks. And at that point, I really do have to agree with Mojang. Who needs rockets for your Elytra when you can launch yourself up this high with that? Since Minecraft's a game of cubes, of course everyone's gonna freak out when there's a new circle that's added into the game. And whether that's the shadows that we see underneath our feet, or the kind of command block trickery that's done by someone like Mysticat, there's now a new contender to throw into the ring. And as user Breakcheek shows off, by using the different orientations of the crafters, we're able to line up their textures just right and get ourselves a new circle inside of Minecraft. I mean, it kinda looks like a stovetop, and I think that's just lovely. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?